Be my guest, be my guest, be my guest with Sean Boy Joe. Be my guest, be my guest, be my guest with Sean Boy Joe.
Take a big breath of air. This is the way we blow up the webs, blow up the webs, blow up the webs. This is the way we blow up the webs to keep the factory clean.
Did you hear about Mr. Brown? He walked around upside down, then he said okay to the Make It Right spray. Now he's a world-famous circus clown. Shout hooray for Mrs. May. She invented the Make It Right spray. Sing along with a special song. It makes everything right, not wrong.
I'll see you later. Right. Now, where's that Peggy Patch? I wonder if she's hiding somewhere, and if she's left us any of her picture clues. Let's go and look. Tiny's bag is flashing. Let's see what we can find. Let's all guess what he's put inside.
Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to the Be My Guest podcast channel with me, your boy, Sean Boy Joe, where I chat to blasts from the past in a podcast. Do you like that, Sarah?
I loved it. That's
very
cool.
Catchy.
A bit of rhyme.
There you go. Very catchy. We learn from the best. Now, of course, I mentioned that today I am joined by somebody very special. To my generation, she's known as a singer, actress, presenter, and now she can add voice artist to her belt. There's nothing that this powerhouse can't do. It's Sarah Davison. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Sean. Good morning.
Good morning. It is morning for us, isn't it? Well, yes. Explain to our viewers where you are now, because you reside in Barcelona, don't you?
Oh, yes, I've been in Barcelona for an awfully long time. I've been here for over 20 years now. So
Wow.
I'm practically a native. Yes, I'm in Barcelona, right in the center of Barcelona. I moved here in 2001. So I've lived here for a long, long time. My kids have grown up here, and I've been working here for a very long time as well.
So you've been hiding away. You've been hiding away. We wondered where
I
Sarah
haven't
went
really
to.
been hiding. I don't think I've been hiding. I've been working. I mean, thanks to having worked for the BBC and Channel 4 and the things that you know about,
Mhm.
I was able to get into broadcasting here. So I still work in children's television quite a lot. But from the other side, I direct and I do voiceovers. Because
Absolutely.
obviously I've got a heavy
People
accent when I
often
speak
assume that
Spanish.
because you're not prominent on screen that you just
Yeah.
fade away, but you've been working very hard behind the scenes, and we'll come to all of that in due course. But I want to find out, as I do with all of my guests, about a little Sarah Davison and what it was like for you growing up.
Oh, okay. So, as you know, I'm going to put on my New Zealand accent now, that I come from New Zealand originally, and from the South Island of New Zealand, and I grew up as a complete show-off with thick specs and unruly curly hair, wanting to be a clown and loving attention from day one.
Never,
Uh,
Sarah. Could never tell.
Used to sing and play the guitar, forced my sister to sing along with us, and we did lots of that at home. So that was like many of your viewers, loved all of that, and then got into amateur dramatics, because my family wasn't particularly theatrical, and from that I got work. What was the first job I did? I did a local theatre called the Court Theatre in Christchurch. Did Jacques Brel's Alive and Well living in Paris. That was my first professional show after doing a lot of Amdram in the area. And then from that, I got work in a big touring road safety rock opera called Roadshow, which was playing a road safety victim. We had huge problems with road safety, and the MOT, the Ministry of Transport, threw money at this and developed a big show. And then from that, I got onto television. And so I worked in television for Television New Zealand in a soap opera for 3 years. And then I worked in theatre and in film all around New Zealand. But that's a small pool relative to the rest of the world. It was wonderful. But I had this burning desire to travel. And so went to England, traveled for a long time, visited various friends in Europe, stayed with family here, and ended up in London as a waitress, and then tried very hard to get work as a because I play lots of instruments, I worked for the Covent Garden Community Theatre, and that's how I got into theatre and I was already an equity member, of course, in New Zealand. So I was able to get, in those days, that was critical to getting work.
Mhm.
You had to get your equity card. And I was able to do that from working with the Covent Garden Community Theatre and reps up and down the country. And at the same time, a contact of my sisters said they were auditioning for BBC Presenters, the newly privatised chunk of under fives televised programs, which was run by Sylvia Felgate, who was a producer for BBC Children's. And that's, I auditioned for Brian Jameson, who was an ex-Play School presenter in about 1989-ish. I don't honestly remember, end of the 80s. And that was fun, and got the job. And the rest is history, really. Then I did tons and tons of programs for BBC Children's, but via Sylvia Felgate. And for Channel 4, had my own series for Channel 4, and met Will and Ian, who did Fun Song Factory as well, which I worked for. We did some projects before that as well, which didn't get turned into telly, but, I've done various things over the years.
Well, it seems like you were very busy back then, and it seems like that,
Yeah.
In your blood was performing on stage, and you mentioned your sister there, who's also a performer, isn't she?
Yes, she is. She is. She, in fact, went to Spain much earlier than I did and worked for very big Catalan theatre companies in Barcelona, as the capital of Catalonia, as I'm sure many of you know. And so everything's in Catalan and Spanish here. And she was very successful as an actor and singer here. And she went back to New Zealand not long ago, but yes. So yes, both of us.
Have you ever performed with her yourself?
Yes, I have, Sean, in a funny little show that we did called The Wandering Wetters, which a wetter's a New Zealand bug. We did it at the Battersea Arts Festival, part of the LIFT Festival, the London International Theatre and Film Festival of Theatre, beg your pardon. We did that years ago. But yes, we've performed together a lot. We set up a band and when we lived together in Barcelona 20 years ago, which is still going, called Waiteki Town, which you can watch if you want. We've got a huge presence online. Starts with a G, Waiteki Town. And my sister and I play lots of different instruments and sing. And she's been replaced by another very successful singer here called Helen Rosen. So she's gone back. My sister Mary went back to New Zealand and Helen took her place, and we're still doing that, which is great fun.
Oh, brilliant.
Lots of comedy.
So working with your sister must be, some people say, working with your sister. Do you enjoy working with family?
I do, actually. I know people have difficult sibling relationships. I would say it was quite tricky at times when we were both auditioning for the same jobs in London. And I'm the bossier, older one. And I was quite economic with the truth to get into Howard's way. I once lied that I could windsurf. I could ski. Most Kiwis in the South Island can ski. Well, a lot of them can. And I could ski and I could water ski roughly in these things. And I lied through my teeth to get a job on Howard's Way. Mary wasn't prepared to do quite so much electric truth telling. And that
did it work in your favour?
It did, although I had to be rescued by a floor manager in a surf rescue boat when we were doing the stand-up paddleboard scenes, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd never been in a harbour, and I got taken right out to sea, which was quite eventful. But they were lovely to me. Yeah, I've done some silly things in my time.
Brilliant. And if Simon Mayo is watching, then you're still here. I don't think we'll see EastEnders coming anytime soon, but you're still here. So we're going to go leaps and bounds, because you spoke about how you got from the theatre into presenting, and it was all down to Sylvia Felgate.
Yes, it was. Cynthia, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Felgate Productions. And it was that wonderful golden time of educational television where, privatising a lot of, and having to commercialise a lot of programmes in order to keep their subsidies, the BBC had to do this, put pressure on programme makers. But when I look back at those programmes, there was less selection. But my goodness, we were really prioritised education, language, proper musical skills, old-fashioned things that maybe seem a little bit squeaky clean these days, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if people find them a bit too old-fashioned, but we were really clear on language skills for under fives, which is, of course, very fashionable again, talking about this now.
Yeah.
Which subsequent programs changed because they were they changed the style of programming for under fives, I would say. And of course, Teletubbies stole our jobs, which we all know.
Oh, yes, of course. Not slightly envious of that. Yeah. But
These things happen.
Of course they do. And, we were talking in the reunion how hard it must have been knowing that, Playdays was coming to an end, and we will come on to that very shortly. But I'm guessing Playdays was the first major TV role that you had in kids' TV.
Well, in kids' TV, yes, I'd done lots of adult stuff in New Zealand.
Right.
I was in a soap opera, it was a historical soap opera like Dr. Finney's Casebook, way before your time, but it was set in the 40s. So I had a lot of television training, which was really useful, but presenting is a very different kettle of fish. Mm-hmm. And I remember Brian Jameson saying to me when I was auditioning, he said, they want to see you, but of course, you can't give everything of yourself when you're a presenter. So you have to decide how you want to present yourself, but make sure it's got lots of you that you feel comfortable giving to the public. And that was very, very useful advice. So you want to be genuine and authentic, but you don't, in order to combat the nerves, you can say to yourself, well, this isn't me, this is my presenting role. And I think that helped enormously. For me personally.
Mm-hmm. And you're not performing on the stage when you're presenting, you're performing to people in their living rooms. So it's very different.
Yeah. And it's intimate, and you're often dealing with kids and improvising. So there's a lot of kind of crossover with comedy and theatre skills. You're speaking off the cuff sometimes. You're often, we had a huge giggle, as I'm sure you know, on Playdays. It was a serious business. We were in Capitol Studios and Wandsworth. The schedules were hard. We'd get there at 6 a.m. and we'd leave at 7 p.m. and we'd have done, a day. We'd make a program a day, I think was the schedule for memory. And we'd do them day after day for a week and then stop for a few days and rehearse the next set. It was a bit like a repertory theatre, but working long hours in a studio. Great team.
You had somewhat 200 episodes that you.
Yeah, I've done. I lost track at about 180. I mean, honestly, it's hard to track down because these things are out there and they're not in the public domain because they don't want to pay the residuals. Of course, the rules on this changed, and they don't want to pay repeat fees, which I completely understand. So it's very hard to remember. But I imagine this information is out there. Certainly, a lot. I did a lot, and I'm tremendously grateful, Sean. I look back and I think, God, I'm so lucky to have had that.
Well, it was a wonderful program as a viewer to watch. I should imagine it was.
What age did you watch it as a kid, Sean?
Yes. Yeah, I would have grown up around that time when Playdays was airing, and also I guess later being repeated. So yeah, it was there. It was always there. Yeah. So for you, what was it like actually working on such a big production with very talented puppeteers?
Well, it was fantastic. It was a wee bit like theatre because we had mostly the same team. There was, obviously Trish and Ricky were the main presenters for the 10th Stop, which is where I did my earlier programs. And then they had a kind of repertory group of actors, lots of us. Will was amongst them, Sue, me, many other people who came and went. But Sally Pressig, when I worked with her on the Patch Stop, we developed a really close friendship, and with lots of the puppeteers were fantastically fun and naughty. So the sense of humor, I don't know if this came out in your last podcast.
Absolutely.
When you talked giggled. We nearly wet our pants. We were laughing so much as presenters and trying to keep a straight face, while puppets in the background or in front of you were doing outrageous things all the time. It was a constant challenge. It was serious fun, and we knew each other really well. At the camera teams, we knew Viv, the wonderful makeup woman. We knew the catering staff who brought us butties in the morning. It was a very familiar kind of environment at Wandsworth Studios at Capitol. It was really, really lovely experience. Really nice.
Well, because I guess you were working on that show for a number of years because it ran quite a long time, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I think I did 8 years worth. So yeah.
Wow, okay. And lots of those people that you worked with on Playdays, you would come across in your next venture, which of course is the Fun Song Factory.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah,
Which was much more
so
theatrical at the beginning. Yeah, it was
yeah.
Will and Ian, you know, on a wing and a prayer without much funding. Some
Mm,
support from various groups did that. We'd already done a previous thing called Boredom Busters, which didn't get bought.
right.
Um, and we all worked together on and gave our time, and that didn't get taken up. I mean, one
Mm,
has done. All of us have probably, I certainly have done various programs over the years that haven't been bought, and that's par for the course too.
mm,
Um, but Fun Song Factory was a great using the same team, using Liz Kitchen and her musical skills and her amazing arrangements. She took a lot of those traditional nursery rhymes and invented her own songs and arranged them fantastically well. So the
yeah.
music was funky and fun and didn't feel old-fashioned. And then Will and Ian, great team, great writing team, great sense of humor. And then they used a lot of us, me, Dave, and Ian, principally, and then other people as well. It was a really fun doing Fun Song Factory. Again, hard. They rented a theatre in Wimbledon, the Wimbledon
Well, then
Theatre.
that's it.
That's right. And we did a few there, and then on a location, we did various bits and pieces as well and made different shows. It was hard, but just a joy working with such a lovely group of people. Really fun. I love interacting with kids too. I really like them. They cut through the rubbish, you've
Yeah,
got to
of
be on
course. You'll get
with.
straight to the point with them. They won't lie to you
Yeah,
at all.
they're just nice. They keep you very grounded, children. They
Yeah,
stop you getting a blown up ego, which is very good for everybody, I think.
absolutely. And I remember saying to Ian a long time ago that I wasn't slightly envious that the Polka Theatre was only about half an hour from where I lived. I never got to see the show. Um, but yes, no, I think I was, to
Terrible.
say the least, I was a huge, huge fan of that show as a kid. I cannot put a finger on why it was, or what for me the success was, but it was just a lovely, lovely show to watch. And as you said, the music was very relevant, very current. It wasn't as if you
Yeah.
were talking down to children at all.
Wasn't old-fashioned,
No.
patronizing kind of ploddy music. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. I
Yeah.
think that was big part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah. So, out of all of the stuff with the Fun Song Factory, and you've done quite a number of those initial video releases because they were released
yeah,
for the free school learning allowance, weren't they?
they were indeed. Yeah, very successful, I'm sure. Yeah. I still get recognized from Fun Song Factory videos, possibly even more than as a presenter. I mean, when I was on the telly a lot, I used to, but
Did you really?
yeah, I have parents come up to me when I had small children and say, "Oh, you're Sarah. Thank you for the Fun Song Factory. We get a lie-in on a Sunday thanks to you." That was a
Yeah,
common one.
you're our babysitter. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of programs that you presented were very much shown in the mornings. And one of
Yeah.
those, if you were very fortunate to catch it, was a program that I adored, and that was Tiny and Crew.
Oh my goodness, you watched Tiny and Crew.
I adored it. It was one of my favorite ever programs as a child. I kid you
What
not.
do you put? What did you love about Tiny and Crew?
Um, I don't know. It was just different. And the fact I could go into school on the Monday morning and everybody was saying, "What were you watching?" And I could say, "Well, you wouldn't know because you weren't privileged enough to have cable television."
Yes, okay. Nickelodeon.
But I just loved it. I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe it was because this big character of Tiny was so eccentric. And plus, I think because you were familiar as well to me from the Fun Song Factory and Playdays. So I just loved you, I guess.
Oh, bless you. That's so sweet. That was much harder work working for that commercial
Right.
channel. I have to say,
Well, it
an
felt very
interesting
much like it was
contrast.
live, really.
It was live
Right.
telly. I mean, it really was. Which I'd done bits of, but nothing that long. So as I said, we worked hard when we were
Hmm.
doing the Play Days programs, and on location too. We worked hard, but obviously you're on location. You're with a little
Hmm.
crew. It was a different scenario. But Tiny and Crew was at the end of a Tiny and Crew day, because you're doing live telly. For those who don't know, I'm sure everyone knows this now, but you'd have your head earpiece, and they'd be saying, "Okay, you're saying to the viewers at home, so Tiny says this, and we're going to," and you're having to listen. Camera 4 in 5, 4, and turn to camera 1 with the next list. With the next line, you're doing several things at once. It's real juggling brain activity. It was a headache at the end of the day. Very, very tiring, very exhausting. I used to finish the day with a band of pain across my forehead because it was and very hardly stopped at all. Sophie,
you made it look effortless, put it that way.
Oh, thank you, Sean. It wasn't effortless. I never felt I did very well, so thank you. I didn't feel that was
it's not like any time you wanted to turn around and just punch him in the face.
Oh no, Tiny was lovely. That was a woman, I cannot remember her name, shamefully. Tiny puppeteer inside this enormous suit. How it was for her wearing a skin for hours. Yes, please find out her name. She was wonderful. That long suffering roles, my goodness, people wearing skins in studio heat. That's hard work. Yeah, we thought we had it hard. Nowhere near as hard as them.
No. And for people that are curious, you were the predecessor to Sophie Aldred, who's also graced this channel and spoke very highly of the program.
And I had to fill Sophie's shoes, which were big shoes. I'd worked with Sophie on a program called Melvin and Maureen's Musicograms.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which is how I ended up getting Modle Millie via that route. But yes, she's extremely good and very professional, and I was really lucky to do that. I can't remember I remember it being hard work, but I did far more. I spent much more of I can't tell you how many Tiny and Crews. I probably did a few series, but probably not as many as she did, I would imagine. I'm not sure. You probably have information.
Well, of course it had a longevity after yourself and Sophie.
Did it? It kept going for years, did it? I didn't even know that. Okay.
Well, they changed the presenter role and they brought in a very big life-sized doll called Tam after that. Right. And I remember that because my auntie came in one morning and said, "Oh, I don't think I like this anymore. Sarah's not on it." So I remember as a child, just my heart sinking, going, "Oh, okay, I don't think she wants to watch this with me anymore, but I'll continue watching it." And so I did, I think, for many, many years after. I was far too old.
Right. Did that mean that it changed in terms of style? Was it less language-based?
It was more as in, as you said, it was very much live when you were doing it. But it was more, I think, not to be rude, it was more dumbed down slightly.
Well, I wanted to say that, but felt I couldn't at that point. Sure, exactly.
And one of those things I was very disappointed at is that Tiny's bag song changed. We couldn't get Sarah bouncing off the walls like she was drinking cola.
Yeah,
that was one thing I really remember very well. That's probably
there was lots of blue screen. There was lots of fun and games. It was great, wasn't it? Actually, the energy. Oh God, yes. Well, you see, at that stage, I wouldn't have understood that fully. But having had children who are now grown up, I completely get it. I completely get it now. The importance of repetition to small kids. It's so it's good that the material's actually sound to begin with, I think, because you're going to hear it a million times.
Absolutely. And one of those programs that you mentioned a little while back where we were talking about my favorite Tiny and Crew was Modle Millie.
Yeah.
That seemed like a wonderful program to be involved in because it didn't fit just the everyday bracket of children's TV. You branched into not just presenting, but comedy and singing and variety, really, which back then I don't think you really got a lot of in kids' TV.
No, I mean, again, I feel incredibly humble and lucky beyond belief to have got that. It was only 10 programs. We only got one series, but it wasn't the same crew that produced Melvin and Maureen's Musicograms, the wonderful and very sadly gone Kay Benbow, and the executive producer was Alison Stewart, who ran the children's BBC executive.
So you were in good company.
Well, those women were phenomenal, very intelligent, great sense of humor, great energy, great ideas, enablers, positive. I can't speak highly enough of them, and just the sheer joy for me as a little Kiwi to be having my, I was playing Millie, so I was the main character.
Yeah.
They would ask for things from special effects. She made models that then came alive. So it was a nice idea for kids that they encouraging them to make things, and then doing musical theatre, of course, which is my very happy place.
Yeah.
Within that, playing these models that came alive. Written by Philip, and he was great as well. He wrote many things, and he was also an actor in his own right. The special effects that the BBC had, and a lot of this got sold when the rules changed about privatizing the BBC. Well, that section of the BBC. They would ring special effects department, Ali or Kay or whoever was directing would say, we need smoke coming out her ears, and we need a trampoline behind here. She needs to bounce from here to here, and we need blue screen for this scene, and it'll all be there like that. I mean, the incredible resources that the BBC had in those days. I was agog. I was just like, oh, it was my greatest dream to work.
They wasn't asking for much there, was there? But it came across very well indeed. I mean, it must have felt a privilege to you to be involved in such a big production, knowing that you are starring in it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. For probably one of the best experiences of my life was working on that program, just because I felt incredibly well supported. I was doing things that I absolutely loved, and I couldn't have been happier. Really, it was fantastic.
And thank God for the repeats, because it repeated many times afterwards as well. So that always helped, having the repeats. So you talked a little bit while you were talking about Modle Millie, about musical theatre, and you love the stage, you love the theatre, you performed in various pantomimes. It's not your first love, I'm guessing, but...
No, panto isn't my first love. I mean, I didn't grow up, although, I suppose we have similar things in New Zealand. We'd have Christmas musicals, and I did tons. I did all of the big musicals when I was in amateur theatre, and then some professionally as well. But I do love musical theatre. If you love to sing and you love music and you play instruments, musical theatre's it's a no-brainer. Of course you love doing that. Yeah. And I did a lot of musicals in rep around Britain as well, and did my own one-woman musical shows as well, which I toured a lot to New Zealand and Edinburgh Fringe and things. So yes, that is a joy for me, musical theatre.
Are you one of these people that say when you're on the stage, you wish you were on screen, and then when you're on screen, you wish you were on stage?
Well, I would certainly say that you get paid a lot more for being on screen, to not to be too boringly sort of cynical about these things. But it's certainly true that, a lot of people said to me when I got offered children's television in the beginning, they said, oh, don't do that, Sarah. I remember my agent saying, well, are you sure? Because they won't take you seriously as an actor once you work on children's television. That's your career gone. And I've always been the kind of performer who says yes to any work that comes along. In New Zealand, it was possible to be doing children's theatre one day, a musical and a serious drama or a soap opera or film or whatever. You could be all of those things, and you weren't pigeonholed. But of course, the UK being the size it is with the history that it has, that's much more what used to happen, certainly in the 80s and 90s. But I never regretted it for a second, because I was working. I'm not the sort of person who would have responded well to sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring to get offered the audition for the right thing. I did get offered Les Mis, which I turned down. I got offered a lot of other musicals, big West End musicals. But by then I'd been privileged to work in children's television, received reasonable money for the work I did. And the thought of doing 8 shows, 9 shows a week in the West End for a lot less money, frankly.
No, you didn't have to at that time.
No, thanks.
No, right. You were quite comfortable as you were.
I was very comfortable, and I didn't care. I didn't care so much about being taken seriously as a musical theatre actress. I cared much more about having fun working. I love working with kids. I love working with the teams I worked with. They were brilliant people, backstage and back camera as well as on stage. Yeah, they were great.
Well, Sarah, talk to me a little bit then about how children's television has changed. It certainly has over here, really, and that is thanks to animation and certain animations that are predominant now. When I was growing up and when you were on the screen, it was very presenter-led. You were doing everything as it was live. Ian regularly mentions that play school was the hardest job he'd ever done. So what do you think has changed in kids TV and why?
It's very topical and interesting, isn't it? I think my gut feeling is I think cartoons can be absolutely everything. They can be brilliant and they can be cheap and rather naff and the opposite of edutainment or infotainment. They are, just commercial and bubblegum for kids, like over-processed food. And the trouble with that is when they get led by commercial interests rather than maintaining education as an important factor, which doesn't pay, promoting anything, so the money's smaller. When it goes that way, when it goes in the direction of money without maintaining educational values for kids and being in touch with that, then you end up with, 65 million channels and nothing you want to see. Well, certainly, maybe the kids think they want to watch it, but you are dumbing them down. You're not. The great thing about presenter-led, although it feels perhaps slightly didactic and old-fashioned sometimes, is you have a child, an under 5, is looking. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at Sean. I'm looking at an adult talking to me, and you relate differently to how you do to a voiceover, much as this gives me lots of my work these days is cartoons, because I'm living in Spain and I do the English version, often the voiceovers for documentaries and cartoons and everything like that here. And that's my world. And I think it's very important. And there are some amazing animation series, amazing, some of which I work on. I think they're fantastic. But if you don't have those regulations insisting that there are, that you don't just commercialize products and let them lead the plot lines, that it's not just at the whim of that you actually try and tell stories, that you engage people, that you use language in a conscious way, then of course commercial interests will just ride over that. And you will end up with pap rubbish. I mean, they are a lot of the lower common denominator cartoons for kids and series for kids are not interesting or valuable and do not help our under 5s. They really don't. That's my feeling.
But I guess it also comes down to the budget and also, it's being able to broadcast these cartoons in any language you want, really.
Yeah, but cartoons are great, but you can keep I'm working on a series called Jasmine and Jambo, which is made in Catalonia by a group called Playdays. And they have made various cartoon series. They use fantastic artists. So the animation here in Spain, that's one of the best places for animation. They do fantastic animation, very beautiful. And Jasmine and Jambo looks like an Ola Keyring. It's all color-coded, absolutely exquisite. And they've used an amazing old guy, he's probably younger than me, a Catalan country and western guy who's Jumbo, who's an amazing, turns himself into, and so he's very imaginative. And then a young woman who's a fantastic singer, in the West, it's equivalent of the West End here. She's a very strong Spanish singer, and she plays this little kid. And the couple turn into amazing things, and they explore music. And it's a very strong, didactically, educationally, very strong series. But it's fun, and the music is strong. It's written by a pop star here in Catalonia. Now that's great. That's engaging. It's won awards internationally. It's a joy to work on. It's more expensive, of course, than cheaper animations that you see. I also work in the cheaper animations, and we always give our absolute everything that we can to make them as interesting and real and authentic as we can. But often you're given scripts which you just know they're not progressing, they're not engaging children's minds. It is the equivalent of bad television in any field, really. Yeah. But they do exist. Good animation does exist. It's a question of having those standards, which you're right. Funding's a major part of that. Selling them, they cost more. It's obvious. Yeah.
And nowadays, I guess as well, you've got to, like you said, with commercial television, sell nappies as well. So everything has to kind of be dumbed down to a certain age group. Whereas when you were on television and the likes of the Fun Song Factory, they could branch out to families as well, which was very important.
Yes. And, it was considered really important that parents could leave their kids in front of the television for a minute, knowing there'd be no commercial products being sold or swearing or anything, they could be safe. They were safe with that. They weren't watching Jaws. They weren't watching anything that was risky. They
No.
were in a safe place. And yeah, I think everyone probably feels this. We've got millions of channels. We've got
Oh, of course.
amazing proliferation. That's the word
Yes.
of different different styles of programming, but the quality is not guaranteed.
No, absolutely. And people of my generation were very safe watching Dave in a tutu. So there we go.
Well, exactly. You
Yeah,
were. Dave in
yeah.
a tutu.
There you
Absolutely
go.
nothing.
Yeah.
There you
You
go.
can
Well, you
never
see,
fix
we were
it.
promoting modern values even then, Sean.
Yes, of course you were. I always say today, you introduced me to the Beatles with the Yellow Submarine. I'd never heard of the Beatles
Oh.
before. So I think that's
Mm.
very important.
And let's remember this was the 90s. And when was Yellow
Absolutely.
Submarine written?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
5
So
years earlier.
yeah, absolutely. So you spoke a little bit in between there about the certain things that you are up to nowadays. And I want to
Yes.
come on to all of that stuff because people will often say, "Oh, where has Sarah Davison been in Barcelona, in the borough hiding?" You have not. You are very prominent in Barcelona doing adverts and voiceover work, and of course, animation. Talk to us a little bit about the work you're doing nowadays and that wonderful program you mentioned there as well.
Yes. Well, that's the creme de la creme of what I do, Jasmine
Right.
and Jabbo, which is out there if people want to see it, and has received lots of international
Are we able
awards.
to see it over here?
Not yet.
Right.
I think it's in Canada,
Okay.
France, the States, but not being bought by anyone in Britain, as far as I know. You can probably stream it. I will, as soon as it
Right.
becomes available to anyone in Britain, I'll let you know. You
Yeah.
can probably see little bits of it on YouTube.
Mhm.
Apart from that, there is a lot of animation made in Spain and in Catalonia. Some of it's good, some of it's not good. As I said, they're quite famous for their artwork and that kind of. When I grew up in the 70s, that 70s style, beautiful mid mid-European, Central European animation style that
Mhm.
grew out of that period. The sort of hippie movement produced, and before that, produced amazing artists doing wonderful animation. And from that, I think this particular part of Spain produced some amazing animation. I've done lots of it, Connie the Cow, Misha the Purple Cat. There's been a lot of under five stuff. Which has been, and slightly older stuff as well, slightly more risque cartoons. I'm
Mhm.
currently doing a series which is, I think I'm allowed to talk about. I think I'm allowed. Well, I'll try.
She thinks,
It's
yes.
called Under the Sofa, and it's a fabulous series, Under the Sofa, or Sota el Sofá in Catalan, which is about a bunch of people who live under a sofa.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and there's a ball of fluff. There's a little animated diver who's lost his arms. There's all these things that
Right.
have been a selfie photo. They've all been rejected and left under the sofa. And it's a
Mhm.
slightly for older kids series with a wicked script.
Right.
Uh, there's a cartoon series here, which is a satirical cartoon series, and the Catalan team who made that have made this series. So the jokes are great. I'm lucky enough to be in the Catalan version, but they gave me a non-speaking role, Sean, because they didn't like my accent in Catalan.
Oh,
I play
always
the
easier
ball
when
of
you don't have
fluff.
anything to say.
I play the ball of fluff, and I do ding, oh, ding. I do a lot of that.
Oh, I see.
But I
Okay.
direct it in English. I direct it in
Right.
English. I play some characters in English. Yeah, so that's a great series and really funny, and I'm looking forward to that getting out there. We're about to start dubbing it in English at the end of the summer, we hope.
Right.
Um, Again, you need 16 different co-producers to make these series. So
Yeah.
one falls out, everything gets delayed. Well, the poor producers and writers go hunting, the production company go hunting for more funders to make it. But it's a great, really funny series. There is a lot made here. There's also a lot of commercial things that get made in Spanish or Latin American Spanish.
Mhm.
And that because of Franco, who was the fascist leader of Spain for years, he insisted everything was made in Spanish. So he dubbed everything. And
Right.
because he made everything be dubbed, so you weren't allowed to see, because he could control, you see, he could control language. If English or French films came in, he made them all dubbed into Spanish to check there was nothing untoward or left wing coming out. And because of his hideous practices. The only upside is that the dubbing industry here is enormous, although they're being very squeezed out by AI currently. But there's still a lot of animated voices done here. So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of voiceovers. I do a lot of guides for museums. I do what else do I do? Yeah, commercial projects for companies and very occasionally commercials for the telly or for internet, although there's less of that these days. AI is eating a lot of voiceover work. So in fact, cartoons are my backbone. They're my lifeblood. I rely on them a lot, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, so you're still very much here, Sarah. We can still look forward
I'm
to
not
seeing
dead yet.
Sarah on the box.
I'm still here.
Absolutely. Talking about, being prominent, I guess more so over here, but do you kind of still get recognized as Sarah Davison by children of my generation?
No, I mean, occasionally, yeah. I was at Primavera Sound Festival not a couple of years ago, and I was with a group of 30-somethings, and they all did a double take. They went, "Ugh." They hadn't realized it was me.
Right.
At that very occasion, but I have to kind of go, yeah, I was on the telly. It's a bit sad,
Yeah. I was
I
there,
think
25 years ago.
they'll quite often say to me, you look familiar, or do I know you from somewhere? I was famous in New Zealand when I was on a soap opera, and
Right.
I didn't
Well,
like
that
it.
brings a whole different fame, doesn't it, really?
It's a much, much uglier sort of fame. Yeah.
I can
Much
imagine.
more prying. You're always on show. You can't go to restaurants. But I mean, no, let's be clear. Yeah, when you're getting into those worlds that you are
Of
supping
course.
with the devil, that you will be paid, and you do get paid well for those projects. So no complaints. But I'm very, very happy to not have a bigger profile than I have. I'm very happy.
You haven't changed a bit since I saw you in 94. Not a bit. Like I say to you, you haven't aged. No one seems to have aged. I'm not going to do any zooming up. Don't worry.
Please don't. Please don't.
So it must be quite rewarding then that you can just sort of go about your everyday life.
It was a big thing to come to Spain. I auditioned for Blue Peter, and they were going to use me for other programs. Well, they said they were. Maybe they were being nice to me. So it was a big decision, and it was after I'd had kids and suffered from a bit of postnatal depression. It was such a change to have had a career that I had, which was fun and full on, to have two small boys at home and not many friends with kids.
Right.
I found that part of my life hard. I adore my children. I wouldn't change any of it for the world, but the transition is difficult. So my husband found a job over here and off we went. No regrets. No regrets. I mean, there's that life not lived, and I see people still working, and I watched what happened with tweenies, and I think that's fantastic, and I thought, oh, that there's another world, there's another life, and it's been hard. It was hard to start here. I've done it 3 times. I left New Zealand, started again in Britain, and then started again in Spain.
Right.
It's hard. It is hard. Let's be clear. And in my ripe old age, I certainly wouldn't do it again. The only place I'd probably move to again would be back to New Zealand, square one.
Right.
But I don't intend to do that at the moment. I'm very happy here. It's a nice place to grow old. And I've still got tons of get up and go, and I'm still working. So
absolutely,
yeah.
You're in your gym kit right now.
I am. I'm in the gym kit.
There we go. Yes, you're waiting to get into the gym, which is great. But you've taken the time to chat to me, and I've loved every moment of it, Sarah. I really have. Now, like I do with all of my guests, and you are no exception, I'm going to ask Sarah about the little things she was watching on the box, unless you were out in the field chewing grass. I guess you were watching TV when you were younger.
Oh, yes.
What was on your primetime telly?
Okay. The things that come back when you say that are Play School, number 1. Play School. And then we had
nice to know you weren't in it, because every guest I've been to seems to be in it. Yeah.
I'd be very, very elderly. Play School, and then there was a New Zealand version of Play School. I think they must have done their own version. I remember that. And the Magic Round.
It's still going in Australia as well, so that's...
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The Play School, Magic Roundabout, and Sesame Street. Those are my favourite things by miles.
Well, we have everything to owe to Sesame Street, don't we, really, for paving the way? So
yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think then? Because I mentioned there that Play School is still prominent in Australia. they made a New Zealand version. Why do you think programmed internationally have a longer longevity than they do over here? Because we tend to get a bit bored of stuff here and decide to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, at our peril, can I just say, it's
Yeah,
not for nothing that those formula continue.
right.
Because look where we are now. I don't know if I've got friends who work in the field of education for under
Mhm.
fives, and they keep me informed on the latest thing. And obviously, we've got tablets and television screens
Yeah,
galore now, and phones for younger children. But there
yeah,
is
of course.
no doubt of the dangers, the perils of not speaking with under fives and under threes, particularly
Mhm.
because as I've talked, I'm a bit boring on the subject. If you don't engage with under threes and put them in front of you, ideally, but in front of people-led television,
Yeah,
then you risk losing language skills, which they will never catch up with. This is statistically
yeah,
becoming clear with all the educational research they're doing. So you don't have the control of vocabulary and language needed to compete in the school system and engage in the school system. And I think, without knowing this 100%, but that's my instinctual response, is to say having a person on a television screen is valuable, that you will respond to the mouth shapes, to the sounds, to the way we speak, to our expression. A small child will respond to that in a different way to an animated screen, no doubt.
of course. Yeah, because it's more relatable, I guess, watching
Yeah,
human beings, really. Um,
yeah.
and that's Sarah Davison saying, "I'm still here. Put me back on the box. I'm still here,
On the
and I
box.
don't look
I'm
any
on the
different.
box.
Like I said, you do not look any different. You can pay
Well,
me in
thank you,
kindness
Corey.
later." So, out of all of your, and you have had, by the sounds of things, a very varied career. You are one of the things that were very prominent to me, and I think my mum would say the same thing watching you growing up, is that you have the most fantastic singing voice. Often people in children's television get away with being able to learn how to sing or sing a bum note, but you were fantastic as a singer, and still are.
Thank you,
That's still
Sean. That's
something
very
very
kind.
prominent.
Yeah, singing's huge to me,
Yeah,
huge. I have three bands that I perform in,
right.
even though I'm over 55. And yeah, and I
Hasn't
singing is
changed. I've said it
extraordinary.
again. It hasn't changed.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really nice compliment. Thank you. I appreciate it. What can I say? I love music. I love singing. You're right. It's not a prerequisite thing to be able to sing, to do children's
Mhm.
television. Lots of presenters weren't strong singers, but they were strong enough.
Right.
And it's nice to have a mixture, perhaps. People
Mhm.
who have more the kind of Dick Van Dyke, well, not Dick Van Dyke, who was the guy? Christopher Plummer
Right. Yeah.
approach to singing, or Dr. Dolittle, that kind of
Yeah.
spoken singing that a lot of presenters did was also valid and perfectly fine. But I
Mhm.
love the singing, and yeah, yeah, I got a lot of feedback about it, and thank you. I
Oh, you're
appreciate it.
very welcome. And what is your style of music? What do you like to sing?
Do you know, I love so many different things. What I do in Waiteki Town now a lot is, because I grew up loving, this is me. I love the
Mhm.
Carpenters and Deep Purple in the
Oh,
70s.
brilliant.
So, basically I love easy listening schmaltz, because Karen Carpenter's voice is out of this world, as we all know.
Yeah.
And I love the screaming guitars and the nonsense from the hair swinging males as
Yeah.
well. And I loved everything between. I love Joni Mitchell. I love jazz. There's very little music I don't love. I'm not big into techno because I'm the age I am.
Right.
Um, just about anything else I love. I adore. I like electronic music, even if it's good.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't like to say I'm a mimic, so I like mimicking different musical styles. So I do
Mhm.
heavy metal ukulele, and then I'll do a kind of ballad, You Don't Own Me style 1950s ballad. I
Right.
love singing those. So I love singing harmony, which my sister and I did from age dot. And Liz Kitchen again encouraged us all to do all of that. And
Yeah.
with Ian and Will were good singers, so we could always do harmony with them, and Dave as well. We did lots of harmony. We did lots of singing. I was probably given the broadest vocal things to do, because that's I'm stronger at that, you know. But I love all of that, and I love combining it with comedy. So, you know, I don't like
Right.
just being a straight person. I like being silly as much as the next person. Love it all.
So where can we see Miss Sarah Davison singing grown-up music nowadays?
You can see on Facebook, well, all of the meta blooming, love them or like them or hate them,
Right.
on Waiteki Town, which is Guateque, Waiteki Town, is the
Hmm.
band that I have been doing initially with my sister, and now
Right.
with Helen Rosen and two other amazing musicians, Elge Araya and Larry Magriña here, they're
Hmm.
local musicians. We've got lots of videos out there, and we gig regularly in Barcelona. Always up for a gig in the UK, but there's not much
Right.
money in live music unless you're
Hmm.
a celebrity.
Hmm.
Um, and then I do with my old friend. I was in a band for years with Liz Kitchen
All right.
and with Simon Deacon, who runs Goldsmiths, is one of the Goldsmiths
Yeah.
music team. He and Liz and I were in a band called Quando Quando. We did backing for people like Mark Armand and Boy George at Pride, and did all of that stuff a lot. Uh, and I still perform with Simon. And Simon comes over and we take themes and do small gigs around the place and still perform a lot. And that gives us both great pleasure. He's a tremendous musician. And then I perform with a singer-songwriter who's a bit more country indie called Peter Loveday. And he and Naomi Wedman and I do music. Again, it's all in Barcelona, but you can see Peter's videos on YouTube and all the social media.
So it's very, very varied, very varied,
Very
and it's
varied. Yes,
lovely.
very varied. And I sing in the cartoons I'm working in as well. I sing a
Uh,
lot of cartoons as well.
but it's lovely that you're open and willing to try any sort of genre as well, which is nice.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm afraid I have no kind of making fool of myself filter, which is good when you're learning a language, but
Right.
sometimes embarrassing for your children.
Right. I remember seeing some of the videos you put out. I think it may have been during the lockdowns where you were
Oh,
playing
did you see
guitars.
those?
Yeah, they were lovely.
Thank you,
Well, they just
sure.
popped up, and I thought, oh, it's that Sarah Davison from 25 years ago. It could not be. Could not be. She's emerged again.
Yes, I kind of had to during COVID because
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that. We had 50 days of not being able to leave the house in
Right.
Barcelona. Very different from the UK,
Yeah.
very different from New Zealand. We were losing 2,000 people a day, very similar to Italy. And
Wow.
so we had to close our doors completely. And people were very law abiding here. So we were allowed out once every 5 days to buy food.
Oh,
And
wow.
we were not, and we live in flats. No, I don't have a garden. We have
Right.
sometimes have terraces, and balconies, but we don't have gardens, most of us. So it was tremendously difficult. And my
Mm,
oldest son was living here, and he's a technician. He was recording me quite often, or my husband.
right.
And I just thought, I'm going to go mad if I don't do something. And a lot of my friends said, sing a song, Sarah, sing us a song, because we were stuck in our flats. So I just did, shameless. Some of them were terrible, some of them were all right. A song a day, mostly on my guitar, occasionally electric guitar or sometimes ukulele. I just
Mhm.
went through songs that I love, and I did one a day for 50 days,
Wow.
which was a good challenge. I
Yeah.
liked it. It kept me sane.
It gave you a purpose, to get up and think, I'm
Exactly.
going to do something. Yeah. Wow. Those conditions over there seem, I mean, we complain over here, but they seem tremendously
It was
hard.
much tougher. It was
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
But your prime minister at the time was saying it was fine until March to move around, and we'd been locked down for at least 2 weeks before you
Mhm.
guys were, at least,
Yeah.
and then we weren't allowed to leave the house at all. So I remember having Zoom conversations with close friends in London, and we'd go, "What? You're going to the shops? You're going to restaurants? You're
Yeah.
what?
Ham. Yeah.
What?"
Yeah.
They'd go, "Oh, you Spanish people, you're over the top. You're all over the top." But actually, we were right.
Do
We
you
needed
think
to.
that? Do you generally think you were right to do that?
Yes, I do,
Yeah.
because if we hadn't at that time, the way we live in Barcelona as well, it's like being
Hmm.
on the metro every day here.
Yeah.
We're in the streets, we're all in together. There's a lot of people around. We would have, I think things would have been a lot worse. Yeah, I'm convinced. It
Yeah.
was a very useful thing to do, harsh though it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I quite agree. And because of it, we got to see Sarah for 50 days flat every single day. So yeah, we were transported back. So transport me back then, Sarah, because you mentioned Model Millie, and I know that's a personal favorite of yours. But out of all of your career in children's television predominantly, what was the highlight for you? What was the moment, apart from Modle Millie, where you went,
Model
oh,
Millie
I'm
is a series
loving
was.
this? Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. Oh, goodness. Playing Gladys Tootle on the roundabout stop. Briefly,
All right.
I mean, doing Model Millie was overall for me a
Yes.
great joy. And I got a
Yeah.
lot of, as I've mentioned already, I think just generally, it's rather boring to say, but it's true that working on with the Playdays team was fantastic. And it was a lovely family-like feeling working with everyone on that program. But the funniest time I ever had was playing Gladys Tootle. Bonk Wee Yatta Tata was the song I had to sing. Does that ring any bells, Sean? You may not have seen it. I don't know if it's out there. It was outrageous. It was very innuendo and
Right.
very silly. And
I
I was
remember the
playing,
character, just not the song.
yeah, I feel that I was Gladys Tootle inside, age 28 or whatever I
Right.
was. That,
Yeah.
but that was probably the most fun I ever had off the top of my head.
And what was the song called again, just for people?
Bonk, bonk, wee, yatta ta. And it was Gladys. It was the classic kind of slightly uptight older woman who was actually lots of fun underneath because she was doing bonk, wee, yatta ta with percussion. And, that was fun. She played the flute, which I also play. So, yes, I mean, that was really fun. I love doing Peggy Patch as well with Sally. We had a giggle. God, she's a great
Wow.
person and a talented person. Really, there was a lovely guy called Will who worked on the Peggy
Mhm.
patch stop, and we had great fun together working on that team.
And
It
you had
was
a great repertoire with Sally because she went on to play Sally the cat in the Fun
yes,
Song Factory as well, didn't she?
did as well. She did
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah. Well,
Isn't
she
it
was a
amazing how the
joy to work
links
with.
interjoin?
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the classic contacts thing, isn't it? You
Yeah.
work with a team who are great. And okay, we should be doing auditions outside of that, but
Yeah.
and I got into it thanks to those open auditions. So they do exist. People did
Right.
get considered, but if you had a great team of people, you held on to them in those days. So we were lucky, and we never had contracts. We were only as good as our last contract. We were used for 8 episodes or 4
Mhm.
or whatever it was, and we couldn't assume that we were ever going to be used again. So that was how it
Right.
went. It's
Right.
interesting. I tell you what I feel is a real shame is I was aware when I got to my early 30s, I was told that I was getting too old to be a children's presenter. And I think that's
Never.
absolutely insane.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's madness. I'm 60 now. So the idea that someone at 30 is too old to be presenting children's programs, that makes me not bitter, it makes me steaming mad.
Yeah.
It's totally ageist and ridiculous in their
Yeah.
30s. That role, that I suppose at those times they
That
thought,
counts me out
kids,
then. I'm 30, so
there you go.
there's
Well,
me
I mean,
down the drain.
yeah, I was still doing it into my early 30s, but
Yeah.
I think it's mad. I think it's absolutely doolally,
It doesn't seem right, does it?
No,
No.
no, it really doesn't. It's madness, stupid.
Mhm.
Um, we did a lot of education series with, I cannot remember her name. Ah, um, no, it's not going to come back to me. After in my early 30s, she was fantastic, and I cannot remember her name. Anyway, it may come back to me. But
That's
for Channel
because you revealed you're 60.
4, I'm so old. Exactly.
Not.
For Channel 4, I did lots of series which were educational
Right.
schools programs for Channel
All right.
4.
Yeah.
I did a lot of them as well, and they were really fun and working for really good people. And they had the same values because they were schools programs,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they were great. But yes, I think it's insane to think that children only want young people in front of them. How limited is that? Think about the
Mhm.
relationship they have with grandparents,
Yeah, of
parents,
course.
uncles. It's like narrowing anyone they see in any way and talking about anything, whether that be the way, gender or
Yeah.
age, race or anything is
Yeah.
insane. It should be as broad as possible, I think. So
Yeah.
that's presses my button, Sean.
Yeah. Have we got better at that nowadays, do you think?
Well, I'm really not in a position to comment because
Right.
I watch very little children's television these days.
Well,
I
I guess
watch
you wouldn't. Your
I
kids are grown
watch
up now.
here. I'm here and I watch the stuff that happens here.
Right.
Um, I think, as I said before, going back to the commercial stuff is pretty rubbishy. The really
Mm,
cheap, mass-produced, often, I'm afraid, American stuff is pretty rubbishy. But there's some the good stuff is fantastic. As I said before, I'm repeating myself. There's a lot of it out there, and all the
yeah.
platforms haven't necessarily having all those channels doesn't mean the quality goes up by the same ratio. There's still probably only about, a tiny minority of programs that I think are really good.
Yeah.
Either because the writing's good, the artwork's good, the voiceover work's good, the production values are good, or ideally all of that, the casting, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Sarah, it's been an absolute joy
It's been a
to.
joy to talk to you,
Oh,
Sean.
bless you. It's been an absolute joy to hear your lovely tones once again. It's like you've never been away. It's been wonderful. And I've been asked many, many, many times to track down Sarah Davison. And I can say that I have now, which is fantastic. Sarah, thank you very much for joining. So
It's
I'm
my
going to
pleasure.
ask you now, as I do with all guests, and normally this is quite easy because guests are normally puppeteering and they've normally got a voice ready, but I want Sarah Davison, the children's TV presenter from the 1990s, to sign us out and tell our listeners why they should be subscribing and listening to this fabulous podcast.
Okay, hello everyone. It's lovely to see you. I hope you've enjoyed this program. I certainly have. And if you have, don't forget to subscribe to Sean. He's fantastic.
Oh,
How's
short
that?
and sweet, just how we like it. There we go. Nothing more needs saying, just hit the subscribe button. You have been my guest on the Be My Guest podcast channel. You have been my blast from the past in a podcast. Once again, you have been fabulous, Sarah. I've loved every moment of this. So thank you for gracing me and my channel and for taking
Thank
the time
you.
out to talk to me and my listeners about your glittering career.
Glittering. I love it.
It
Sean, it's
certainly
been a real
has been.
pleasure. It's been a total pleasure to talk to you and to be reminded and to tickle the memory so that it comes out again. It's lovely. Thank you.
Well, do you rely on us now? Oh, yes, he remembers that more than I do, and I was in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've
Yeah.
forgotten a lot. I'm afraid it happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thanks, Sarah. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Be lovely talking to you as well, Sean. Thanks a lot.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah. I'll look forward
Thank
to
you,
seeing
Sean.
everybody very soon.
Thanks a lot. Lots
Thanks
of love.
now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.